Joins us for his weekly visit on the Farm Bureau guest line. Check out favorites.com and go with the home team, Mississippi Farm Bureau. Luke, that was not how we drew up Saturday night.
Not at all.
I don't guess I can get in trouble for being like the look-ahead guy or the, counting a win or not being focused enough. But I had this one chalked up for a win in June and July and August and last Tuesday when we visited. And I was wrong.
I mean, everybody did. Yeah, Butch Jones had not beaten anybody in the Sun Belt other than ULM. I mean, and, they've been outscored by FBS opponents 110-3 going in. And, man, it hurts just to, think through those two things. But, yeah, I mean, the game started the way you want it to be. Southern Miss got the opening kickoff. They went 84 yards in 12 plays and got a touchdown, and you're up 7-0. And Arky State answers, and then that's where really the turning point, kind of how everything started. Billy Wiles threw an interception. Arky State starts at the Southern Miss 8-yard line. They score. Southern Miss, the next possession, gets a punt blocked, gets another short field again at the Southern Miss 26. Arky State scores again. Then you answer, but then you give up a big kick return and get another penalty, and so they started short field again. And so when you look at, this defense gave up 44 points. What's wrong with Southern Miss defense? They gave up 3 points against Tulane. 3 times in the first half, they were given extremely short fields, and that just added up at the end of the game.
So it's one of those deals where, it doesn't matter if you go, well, Southern Miss was the better team or Arkansas State was the better team, because there's a scoreboard and we kind of defer to the scoreboard when it goes to all zeros, and Arkansas State wins the game, so it doesn't really matter. But it is one of those games where you go, if they play 10 times, Southern Miss probably win 7 or 8 of them, 8 or 9 of them. I don't know. That feels a little disingenuous to say after the fact because there was an opportunity there and you didn't get it done. That's part of the disappointment in this, isn't it?
It is. You knew because of what other teams had done against them that you were going to be able to get yards and get points. And you go get 450 yards. We've been talking about the rushing attack had not done anything. They got 234 yards on the ground. Frank Gore gets over 100 yards. And you lose. You put up 37 points. So you feel like on a normal day without block punts and interceptions at bad times, they had a chance right before the half to go down and tie the game up or pull ahead, and they threw another interception. Went in the half 2017. Arky State comes out, scores 17 straight or 14 straight. Southern Miss answers. But, yeah, to your point, you feel like 8 or 9 times they play this game, they win without those mistakes. And that's what Will was so frustrated about Monday, just lack of execution. They have not got a complete game with both sides working together, and special teams hurt them this week.
It's only a third of the way through the season, so there's a lot of football still to play. 8 games left in the regular season. But it does feel like you're very much at kind of a gut check, where do you go from here moment when you kind of look at what's left. It feels like there are a couple of opportunities in front of you. Southern Miss, an underdog at home against Texas State this week. Texas State's been pretty impressive so far this season. Got the game against Old Dominion coming up. But, man, we've talked about that second half of the season. It is no picnic, and the opportunities to get wins get harder and harder to come by.
They do, and like you said, this one was a gimme. Everybody thought, and you thought the next 2 were as well. But Texas State's 3-1. TJ Finley's thrown for over 1,000 yards. He's got 8 in the air, 3 on the ground. That high, flying offense. And people don't know about G.J. Kinney. Pretty interesting, about him. He played for Malzahn at Tulsa, and then was with Chad Morris at Arkansas and SMU. Their defensive coordinator. Here's a Mississippi connection. Their defensive coordinator, I think his last name's Patke. He was actually a GA on Manny Diaz's staff at Mississippi State in 2015. And then he followed Diaz to Miami. He was under Rick and Diaz down there. Defense is
as an aside,
playing well too.
as an aside, Manny Diaz still good at coaching defense. I don't know if you followed Penn State this year or not, but good grief.
They're good.
Maybe not a great head coach,
And
real good defensive coordinator.
so you've got, the Malzahn influence on offense, and they had the nation's number one offense last year at Incarnate Word. And then you've got that Diaz tree, with defense. And so Texas State, they're 3-1. They hit the portal like really hard. Of course, they got Finley, but they had it was like over 20 guys that came in from Incarnate Word that know that system well. And I think that's why they translated so well in the first game against Baylor. But yeah, back to your point, Old Dominion's 2-2. Old Dominion lost an ACC team by 3 points, and what we thought would be possibly 3 wins in a row, you're gonna have to work to get two of the 3.
Yeah. And now, if you're thinking about bowl eligibility, there are 8 games left. You got to go 5-3 over the next 8 games, and if they go 5-3 over the next 8 games to get to 6-6, you better have a party, because that was some good football that was played down the stretch. If that happens,
yeah. The only silver lining is there's so much parity now in Group of 5, and I think Central Michigan showed that at South Alabama. South Alabama's got to go to JMU and Virginia this weekend. Yeah. Probably the hottest team other than James Madison's Georgia State. They're 4-0. They beat Coastal, at home or on the road last week. And so Troy's got to go to Georgia State. And so what frustrates you more than just the fact you lost a game that you're supposed to have won, you could look up and you could be a game on Troy right now. And probably with what this weekend holds, you might be 2 games up if you win this weekend on that, and you can't get to it. And so that's what's frustrating to add insult to injury.
All right, so health-wise, what's the scenario going into this week with Texas State?
So they lost Sabatini. He was a cornerback. Lost him for the year. That kickoff return that I mentioned earlier, he tore his ACL, and it was he was a contained guy, and they were able to get. So what they've done is they've moved Franks out of McGee. He was a wide receiver. They've moved him to cornerback. Will Hall announced today. Cole Cavallo may be back this weekend, which would be big. That's your starting tight end. Then, of course, like last week, they lost Brendan Tolles for the year. So that secondary's, pretty thin with Sabatini and Tolles both going down. But you feel like you may get Cavallo back. And obviously, everybody was concerned about Frank Gore, last week, but he didn't show any issues. Rushed for 130 yards.
Yeah, the best that he's looked this year, right? Like not even close.
Yeah, and I think they were just able to, run where they wanted to run. But I'll tell you what, Drake Clark, man, he busted one Saturday, and for the season right now, he's averaging 7.1 a carry, and he is a great compliment back. They just got to get it going, and that's just what you hope to see. I do think that they were able to run the ball like they were, because Arkansas State, is obviously not good on defense. But when you put together an offense day like that to get some momentum, you cannot, at the same token, as an offense, put your defense in bad situations like they did in the first half and just give them 3 short fields.
It really is crazy to think where Arkansas State is right now. They had like a 15-year run, certainly a decade-long run where it was just year after year after year, win, and then I think just thought, okay, hire Butch Jones, he'll be the next. It's self-sustaining, and it has not self-sustained over the last couple of years. Ooh. It's,
Freeze, Malzahn, Harsin, and Blake Anderson. And a lot of that was Blake Anderson. And, not to bring up the bad past, but that should have been the Southern Miss hire in 2012. And that
Blake
could have
Anderson?
changed the last decade. Blake Anderson. You bring him back from North Carolina. He was Fedora's OC at Southern Miss. And that's the ball that got dropped that kind of created the last decade.
Man, you don't have to do that to yourself. You don't have to bring 2012 up. There's no reason to do that. There's no reason to do that.
We have a rule on the Eagle Hour. Like, we'll mention the year, but there is one who shall not be named, and so we just don't say that name. And if we do, we spell his name with 12 L's rather than 2.
Jeez. He's a good man, though, I think. Yeah, but
just wasn't a good football coach in South Mississippi.
Fair enough.